Welcome to Mystery Nest, where we talk about the darkest mysteries. Today, we're going to find out whether the Jack the Ripper mystery has truly been solved. But first, let's start the story from the beginning. In the autumn of 1888, London was a city divided by wealth and poverty, progress and despair. The East End, particularly Whitechapel, was a place where thousands of people lived crammed into slums, working long hours for little pay, and where many women turned to prostitution just to survive. Narrow alleys twisted through overcrowded tenements, the streets dimly lit by gas lamps, the air thick with smoke and filth. Crime, disease, and desperation haunted the district, but nothing could have prepared London for the terror that emerged from the shadows that year. On August 31st, the body of Mary Ann Nichols, known as Polly, was found in Buck's Row. Her throat had been cut so deeply she was nearly decapitated, and her abdomen was savagely slashed. Oh wait, don't forget to leave, like, and subscribe for more mysteries like this. The brutality shocked investigators, who at first treated the murder as a horrific but isolated crime. Only a week later, on September 8th, Annie Chapman was discovered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, her throat cut and her body mutilated with organs removed. The precision of the cuts suggested anatomical knowledge, fueling speculation that the killer might be a butcher, a doctor, or a surgeon. The press seized on the story, spreading panic through London and christening the unknown murderer with a name that would echo through history: Jack the Ripper. Fear grew as patrols increased, but the killer struck again. On the night of September 30th, 2 women were murdered within an hour in what became known as the double event. Elizabeth Stride's body was discovered in Dutfield's yard with her throat cut, but no further mutilations. Investigators believed the killer had been interrupted, forced to flee before he could finish his work. Moments later, only a short walk away, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square. Her face was mutilated beyond recognition, her abdomen slashed open and a kidney removed. The killer vanished into the fog, leaving behind carnage and confusion. By now, newspapers were printing every rumor and detail, feeding the public's obsession with the faceless murderer. Then came November 9th, when Mary Jane Kelly was discovered in her room at Miller's Court. Unlike the outdoor killings, this murder happened indoors, giving the killer time and privacy. What police found was so horrific that many refused to speak of it. Kelly's body was mutilated almost beyond human recognition. Her face destroyed, her organs scattered across the room. It was the culmination of the Ripper's reign of terror, and after her death, the murders attributed to him abruptly stopped. The sudden silence only deepened the mystery. But the story of Jack the Ripper was not defined by the killings alone. Letters began arriving at police stations and newspaper offices, claiming to be from the killer. The most famous, the Dear Boss letter, taunted investigators and was signed Jack the Ripper, the first known use of the name. Soon after, the Saucy Jack postcard gloated about the double event, while the most disturbing letter of all arrived in October, the From Hell letter, sent to George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Inside the small box was half of a human kidney preserved in alcohol. Catherine Eddowes had been missing a kidney, and the implication was clear. Were the letters authentic, or cruel hoaxes by journalists or pranksters feeding public hysteria? No one knew for certain, but the media frenzy ensured Jack the Ripper became the most infamous criminal of the century. Scotland Yard launched one of the largest manhunts in history. Hundreds of officers patrolled Whitechapel, detectives conducted thousands of interviews, and entire neighborhoods were searched. Yet the killer was never caught. The list of suspects grew long. Montague John Druitt, a barrister and teacher who drowned in the Thames weeks after the last murder, was considered suspicious by some investigators. Aaron Kozminski, a Polish immigrant barber suffering from severe mental illness, was identified by contemporary police officials, and modern DNA testing on a shawl attributed to Catherine Eddowes controversially linked him to the crimes. George Chapman, born Severin Klosowski, was a barber surgeon who later poisoned 3 of his wives and was executed in 1903. Some believed his violent tendencies fit the Ripper's profile. Another suspect was Francis Tumblety, an eccentric American quack doctor with a known hatred of women. Each suspect had compelling aspects, but no case was ever conclusive. Over the decades, theories multiplied. Some suggested Jack the Ripper was a woman, perhaps a midwife who could walk the streets at odd hours without suspicion. Others saw conspiracies, linking the murders to Freemasonry or even the royal family. One theory claimed Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria, was involved in a scandal covered up by the killings, though historians dismiss this as sensational myth. Still, the rumors persisted, adding layers of intrigue. Each new idea reflected society's fascination with the unknown killer, a figure who seemed to embody the darkness lurking in modern urban life. Stay a little bit until the end of the story, so we can solve this mystery. The Ripper murders also exposed the limitations of Victorian policing. Crime scenes were not secured, evidence was often contaminated or destroyed, and forensic science was still in its infancy. Photography, fingerprinting, and blood analysis were either primitive or not yet widely used. Detectives relied heavily on eyewitness testimony, which was contradictory and unreliable. The failure to catch the killer fueled criticism of the police and led to lasting changes in investigative methods. The Ripper case became a grim turning point in criminal history, showing the need for more systematic approaches to crime scene management and forensic science. Even now, more than a century later, the legend endures. Writers, historians, and amateur sleuths continue to pore over documents, police files, and witness statements, hoping to find the clue that eluded investigators in 1888. Novels, films, and television adaptations have kept the story alive, shaping the image of Jack the Ripper as the archetypal serial killer. Yet at the heart of the mystery are the victims: Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Women who lived in poverty, whose lives were cut short, and whose suffering was exploited by the press. They remind us that the Ripper was not just a shadowy legend, but a real killer who preyed on the vulnerable. Who was Jack the Ripper? Was he Druitt, Kosminski, Chapman, Tumblety, or someone whose name was never recorded? Was he a doctor, a butcher, a lunatic, or an ordinary man hiding in plain sight? The truth remains buried in the fog of history. What is certain is that Jack the Ripper left a legacy of fear and fascination that has never faded. His crimes reshaped the way the world views serial killers, the way media covers crime, and the way we confront the darkness hidden within human society. The mystery has endured because it taps into something deeper than unsolved murders. It speaks to the fear of the unknown, the predator who strikes without warning, and the haunting possibility that some secrets are never meant to be uncovered. And so, more than 130 years later, the question lingers, until a few days ago, when this mystery has been solved. The key breakthrough came when forensic scientist Russell Edwards used mitochondrial DNA extracted from a piece of cloth found at the crime scene, a shawl believed to have belonged to Catherine Eddowes, one of the Ripper's victims. The shawl had been examined for decades, but was never thought to be a reliable source of evidence due to contamination and degradation. The blood-stained shawl, which was said to have been found on Catherine Eddowes' body in 1888, was purchased at auction in 2007 by Russell, and was later found to have the DNA of both the victim and Kosminski. Who was Aaron Kosminski? Kosminski was one of the original suspects named by investigators during the 1888 investigation. He was a 23-year-old barber who lived in Whitechapel and was known for his erratic behavior and history of mental illness, spending time in an asylum in 1889 and resided in them till his death in 1919. However, at the time, Kosminski was never arrested or charged due to a lack of concrete evidence. Kosminski was Jewish and, as stated previously, The Ripper placed a part of Edo's apron underneath a quote written by the murderer about anti-Semitism in Whitechapel, and he was also known for his hatred of women, especially prostitutes. However, the conclusion of the Jack the Ripper case doesn't erase the lasting trauma and mystery surrounding the murders. Kosminski's identification as the killer does not change the grisly details of the murders or the terror that gripped London during those fateful months in 1888. It's a stark reminder of the horrific reality that the victims faced, and the long-lasting impact of the crimes on the community and history. This mystery is probably solved. What do you think? Was Aaron Kosminski Jack the Ripper? Or do you have another theory? I'll let you share your thoughts in the comments.